right, hello, and welcome back to the Chase Most podcast. Taping this on a Thursday afternoon, a couple hours before Golden State and Boston go to Game 6 here in Boston. Who is not in Boston is Jovan Buha. He covers a team that I think a lot of folks do not want to see come back and win the final two games in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. But Jovan, you're here. You've killed yet another LA team when you switched over the beats. Who's next on your list?
I don't know what it is. This like toxicity follows me around wherever I cover. I go to the defending champion Lakers, and they have two disappointing seasons. So, and look like they might have a third. So we'll see. But yeah, I guess I'm bad luck.
I don't know, man. Like, so you're on vacation, you're getting time away. I like it. But you do have, I just imagine, like, you've gotten some texts where you've gotten somebody been like, hey, did you hear Anthony Davis hasn't picked up a basketball and since the season ended? What's going on? Is it like code red when they said, like, because I could not believe that was a story, because for a lot of folks who have kept up with the Anthony Davis thing, I think you and I talked about this, where he did not get to do his normal several month off away from basketball following the bubble season. And that was really, really hard on him, and that's like his way of recharging. So it didn't surprise me that he said that, but a lot of people were pretty bewildered at Anthony Davis not going anywhere near basketball postseason.
Yeah, and we also don't know. I don't know if it has officially come out like when that was even filmed.
Yeah.
So that could have been
True.
May 7th. And he's saying, they're like, when was the last time you touched a basketball? He's like, oh, it's been over a month. Like, and obviously he didn't say that, but like, I think just because when it was released, it's 2 months later, doesn't mean that that's when those things are filmed. Like, oftentimes those vlog type things are at least a week old or so.
Yeah.
Depending on, whoever's putting them out. So I would say we never got confirmation on when that was actually recorded. And, who knows? Maybe it was within the last week and a half, but I think it was a complete overreaction. AD has been public about he'll take 4 to 6 weeks, not even touch a basketball, not even do anything, just kind of let his body recover. And if anybody needs recovery, it's Anthony Davis.
Yes.
With kind of the fragility of his body, and then he'll start to weightlift again and kind of ramp it up, and then get back into shooting. So. Is it maybe on the longer end of most stars? Yes. I would say, yeah. Like, I'm sure there are people who might take a few weeks off and then get back to at least shooting. And maybe they're not going to go, full on scrimmaging, full on live action stuff. But it's at least like, hey, let me keep my jumper fine tuned and in a rhythm and some consistency there. And I do think Anthony Davis needs some of that, where, he's coming off the last 2 seasons combined shooting 22.9% on threes, which is really, really bad. And coming off that stretch in the bubble where he was at almost 40%, like the Lakers need, especially if they're going to make this Russell Westbrook thing work or try to make it work, you're going to need better shooting from Anthony Davis. So I do think that, the next 2-3 months, he's going to really need to be in the gym and focusing on his shot and catch and shoot, and even some pull-up stuff, some off-the-dribble stuff. Like, I think he's capable of that. He's shown he's capable of that. Guys taking, I've talked to several players this offseason, and they all took at least a month off and before they even got back in the gym. So I don't think that that's crazy. And again, someone like AD who has dealt with so many injuries, like, he needs to be careful, and you don't want him getting injured in the off season, right? So that would be a disaster heading into the year. So I think, but there's also, it shows like this is kind of the dead time of the sports cycle. Aside from the playoffs, there isn't really much to talk about. So I think people are looking for anything to overreact to.
Yeah, I mean that is a lot of it, and I don't know, man. Since 2020, the bubble season to now, I think a lot of players are just gassed mentally. And I think finally getting a normal offseason away from everything, and it seems like next year's NBA season should be pretty normal 2019 levels. So, hey, if you want to take some time, Anthony Davis is going to be fine with or without. If he takes it, he'll be fine. Like, that's something I would not worry about, is how often he's picking up a basketball this summer. But well-to-do rest, and I think a lot of dudes need to like mentally recharge and get ready. So in terms of the Lakers, though, they hired a coach, Darvin Ham, Jovan. My immediate reaction was just that, like, I mean, that's fine. I don't really. It's not really a coaching thing where I think he'll be fine. Frank Vogel was fine. He won a championship. Frank Vogel is a very good basketball coach. I think Darvin Ham will be a very good basketball coach. But I think there's significantly more factors at play that are above him and whether or not he succeeds. So I don't know. Were you surprised ultimately that the Lakers went with Ham? Did you have any inclination that it was going to go a different way? Were you surprised that Howard was not seriously interested in leaving Michigan for the pros and coaching this team? What did you make of this coaching search?
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing was there really was no sexy name out there. And I know it came out that Juwan Howard was technically their top candidate, which the Lakers can't really help themselves of just not making the coach they hire feel great. It's always, like they hire him and then it's like, hey, well, we wanted this other guy or these other couple guys. And it's
they all said no.
That's not the best way to start kind of a relationship with the coach. But, I think what really was telling to me was like how far the Lakers have fallen, I think, reputation-wise to some extent. Insofar as like, I think this situation of having, like, you go back like 10 years ago, and the whole Mike Brown situation and Mike D'Antoni and stuff. But Mike D'Antoni was a very, attractive coach. Like he was someone who people want. Like he was very highly regarded coming off that Phoenix situation. And I think, like, had we gone back 10 years in time, I think the Lakers would have had a shot to get a Doc Rivers, a Quinn Snyder, a Nick Nurse. Like they would have had their pick of, we're going to poach an elite coach in a situation in a smaller market or a situation where, they might not be able to truly contend in the near future. And we can get basically, and aside from a Spoelstra, a Pop, like we can get basically any coach in the NBA. And that is no longer the case. And I thought the Quinn Snyder situation of him announcing he wasn't coming back to Utah like the day after the Lakers hired Darvin Ham, I thought was pretty interesting. And then, them being tied. The Doc situation was a little bit more, I think Philly, I don't think they want to be paying multiple coaches. And I think that they're going to give him one more year or whatever. But even Nick Nurse, like with the clutch ties, like I thought, that is someone that really could be a game changer for you if you get a Nick Nurse, but that ultimately didn't happen. So I think once those names are off the table, looking at it, I did a coaching kind of big board tiered ranking, and I had Darvin Ham second. I think that, again, kind of looking at the market, like Terry Stotts, is that really moving the needle?
Is he joining the staff?
Steve, no, he doesn't want to take on an assistant role. But like looking at some like Steve Clifford or even Kenny Atkinson, I think that would have maybe been my second choice after Darvin. It was close for me between Stotts and Atkinson, but Darvin to me was just someone who checked a lot of boxes. 11-year assistant coach, someone who had already had ties with the Lakers a couple years as an assistant in LA. That's where he got his start, and throughout his coaching career has gotten stars to really buy in and really like him. And I think that's something you really need. And I think that's something that, frankly, no pun intended, like Frank Vogel didn't really have last season. And ultimately, like the locker room kind of tuned him out. So I think Darvin, worked with Kobe in LA, in Atlanta, Al Horford, Paul Millsap, those guys. And then now in Milwaukee, of course, Giannis, like, his track record is pretty impressive, and coming from the Bud coaching tree, which really comes from the Popovich coaching tree, like those coaches have a pretty impressive track record. And yes, there's some misses, but for the most part, like Quinn Snyder, Taylor Jenkins, like Bud, even Kenny Atkinson in Brooklyn, like those guys all had success in kind of their initial year entering a new situation. So. And also, I mean, I don't know if you saw the press conference, but Darvin is charismatic and charming, and but at the same time, you can tell like he's a big dude and he's got this like toughness to him, where I think him maybe confronting Russell Westbrook or a player is going to be a little different than Frank Vogel, who's a little more mild mannered. So I think there's a lot. He's got this gravitas to him, and just again coming from the Bud system where Milwaukee's had a lot of success, Atlanta had a lot of success. I think, he has the pedigree of an assistant coach who steps in and is successful. The question for me, of course, is what happens with Russell Westbrook? Is he on this roster? And like, how does that factor in? Because that to me really is the ceiling on this Lakers team. I still think that if you have LeBron and AD, if AD is AD and not the AD we've seen, the last year and a half, that is 2 top 10 guys. And no matter how bad your supporting cast is, you have 2 top 10 guys, you have a chance against basically anybody. But Russ, I think, limits your ceiling on both ends and limits your flexibility and kind of the pieces you can put around those guys. And I really think that if Russ is on this team, they're like a 6 or 7 seed. They're going to basically, barely be making the playoffs or kind of be in that play-in mix. And that's another disaster kind of season where you're basically wasting one of LeBron's last prime years, if he's still kind of technically in his prime. So to me, like, the Lakers have to do anything in their power to trade Russell Westbrook, attach a first-round pick. I think maybe attaching 2 is too many, but I think you got to flip Russ for whatever you can get for him and really move on, because I think if he's on the roster, there's no sign to me that they can make this work.
Well, we'll hold the Westbrook thing because we'll get into that a little bit more. I mean, he was at the press conference, so I think that signed, sealed, and delivered that he's back for next year. But it's also like, I mean, I'll hold the Westbrook thing for a second.
Okay.
I think part of what's interesting too, and I want to get your perspective on this, is that, like, I think part of the reason, if you're Doc or you're Quinn or you're Nick Nurse, your current situation or where you could go is better than what the Lakers can offer. Where I think there's a possibility, and this is something I said a couple weeks ago on the pod, where I think there's a strong possibility LeBron's already played his last important NBA game. Like, I think there's a strong possibility as a main guy, a prime guy, I think he's played his last one, and that the bubble run we're going to look back on is like, oh, that was it. Like, he gave it his all in the bubble with AD, and now he's kind of stuck. And I think LeBron knows he's stuck, and that's why you're seeing I want to own the Las Vegas franchise team, and like I'm a billionaire athlete now. He's now in that status now, and he's got a lot of focus on Bronny, and he's ready. He's just hanging out just to get there. Like, he just wants to be in the league when Bronny comes up and that kind of thing. But I think there's a strong possibility because you talk about moving on from Westbrook, but when I look at the finals and you talk about this, like, I said they were not going to be in the playoffs last year, and this was before the season and the tape show. I was like, I think what we've learned post bubble is that, I mean, look at Tatum in the finals. Like, he's out of gas, and I think it's going to come out that he's hurt and that he's been playing hurt in this finals.
The shoulder hasn't looked right. Yeah,
he's just not right. And the team that looks like, I mean, we're taping this before Game 6. The team that wins, the team that has 13 deep. The team that has just guy after guy. They have the young guys if they need to. They have the vets. They brought Iguodala back. The Porter signing. You have Kevon Looney. You go up and down the list so that if Steph doesn't hit a 3 all night, that you could still win because they're just so deep. And the Warriors did not have that group together the majority of the season. They had to rely on different people to get to this point. I just don't think there's a scenario where the Lakers can build up enough depth to contend like they used to. Like, I don't think there's a path for them to get 9 to 10, 11 guys that Darvin can trust to get them there. So when AD sits for a while and he gets his rest, or LeBron has to get his rest, that like there's enough in the cavalry to keep this thing humming. I just don't see the path. I think they're kind of stuck. And I would guess that a lot of coaches around the league are like, look, we love LeBron and we love AD. We would love to coach them both in a vacuum. But this situation, I don't see how we navigate this cap situation, the roster situation, that we can get the depth necessary to contend over the course of a month and a half playoff stretch. I just think it's asking too much of AD and LeBron in 2023. Like, I don't think it's possible. What do you think? Am I too harsh or too difficult on them?
No, I think you're being pretty accurate. Like, I think this all to me stems from an overreaction to last season, the 2020-21 season, and them really thinking that they needed this like second ball, elite star ball handler next to LeBron, because I don't think LeBron wanted to carry that offensive load anymore. But really, I mean, I come back to the Westbrook trade. The Westbrook trade, like, because even that second season of LeBron and AD, they start 21-6. They are in second in the West. AD goes down, gets injured, and then LeBron goes on this crazy tear where that's when he enters the MVP mix. And we're talking about, can LeBron win an MVP at like 36? And they were still top 3 in the West. And then LeBron sprains his ankle. Solomon Hill dives into it, and he collapses, and he's out for a bit. And now the Lakers don't have any stars, and that's when they plunge from top 3 in the West to a play-in team, and end up making the 7th seed. But they're up 2-1 on Phoenix in a 2-7 matchup, and AD goes down in Game 4 and returns briefly in Game 6, but can't really play, and that's the end of that series. But I think there was an overreaction to that team losing in the first round and kind of the context of the season, because I still think if you kept that blueprint of the first 2 years of just, we're going to put these 3-and-D role players around LeBron and AD, and we're going to kind of have 2 identities where we can go big with our centers, or we can go small with LeBron and AD at the 4-5. We can kind of match up stylistically against anybody. And even a guy like Kuzma, who I think had always kind of been a little overrated because of just playing for the Lakers, he still served a valuable role of just being this giant forward who could defend multiple positions, shoot the 3 ball well, and get out in transition. And
the Bobby Portis type role.
They consolidated their depth for a 3rd star, which works if you get a 3rd star, but they did not get the 3rd star. So you now traded for a guy who's not playing at a 3rd star level, and you also lost your depth. And that was clearly a big problem last year. And they could have partially solved that by keeping Alex Caruso, who I think would have been their 3rd best player last year, by a solid margin. But chose, they could have kept Talon and Alex, gone deeper into the luxury tax, didn't do that. It basically became an either or, kept Talon, lost Alex. And that was a huge mistake. Talon wasn't very good. Alex obviously continued to do what he did in Chicago, aside from getting injured by Grayson Allen. And I think, now they're kind of in this tough spot where Westbrook is declining and kind of in denial about it. He's not playing at a 3rd star level, and you really have no way to get the depth that you're talking about. So I think the one possibility is if you can do a Indiana or Charlotte trade where you can get a Brogdon and a Buddy Hield, a Brogdon and a Miles Turner, or a Gordon Hayward and a PJ Washington, a Terry Rozier and a Kelly Oubre, maybe even throw in a Mason Plumlee and kind of figure out the contracts there.
Can they afford that?
With
and
West,
also
with
bring
West's
back Malik
salary.
Monk? Because Monk was actually good for him last year. They actually kind of need Monk back.
They could only use their taxpayer mid-level, which is about 6.3. I think he's going to get more than that, honestly. I think he's probably going to get the full mid-level of 9-ish, 9.5. So I think Malik's probably gone. And I think if you're looking at them, if that's your one tool you can upgrade the roster with, based on the current construction, you have Russ in the backcourt, and now maybe here we're flipping him, but you have Russ, you have Talon, you have Austin Reeves, you have Kendrick Nunn coming back, who you spent the taxpayer on last summer. Yeah. So you're kind of full in the backcourt with guys who expect to play it and guys who can play, to varying levels. You need front court help. I mean, your front court is barren. It's LeBron and AD, and then Wenyen Gabriel and Stanley Johnson. You need a lot of front court help. So I do think that the Lakers are probably going to use that taxpayer mid-level exception on a 3-and-D wing, the best that they can get for that money,
But who is that? Have you
a stretch 5?
It's bad, man.
It's bad. Honestly, Daniel House or Cody or Caleb Martin are kind of realistic names I've heard that could be in the mix.
Next year. That's over. I'm writing it in.
Yeah. But I think if you can flip. To me, I love the Indiana trade, and that's one where, to me, you throw in the first, and honestly, you might even throw in 2 firsts. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but to me, it's what are you doing with LeBron and AD? What's the point? Unless you just care about being relevant, being on First Take and ticket sales and all that stuff, and that's fine if that's the approach you want to take. But the Lakers are, Rob Pelinka likes to remind us, for the Lakers, it's championship or bust. If you do not win the championship, the season is pointless. They don't hang conference, Western Conference Finals, banners in Staples Center or Crypto.com Arena or their practice center. It's all about championships for the Lakers, right? They're in this arms race with the Celtics for all time, most championships. So to me, I'm like, if you have LeBron and AD and you have I think you have a championship 1-2. You obviously don't have a championship 3-10. You have to do everything you can to get that championship 3-10. And to me, if you can flip Russ for, again, Brogdon and Hield, Brogdon and Turner, Hield and Turner, something like that, with Indiana, get that money off their cap and send them future picks, which could be valuable. I think you have to do that, because now if you're saying, okay, like, I mean, I think the Lakers would love, like, Brogdon and Turner would make, a lot of sense, right? That plugs your point guard and your center spot. But like, even if Brogdon and Hield, you get those two, and now all of a sudden, okay, like, sure, is it your ideal, like, third and fourth best player? Probably not, but it's better than Westbrook plus whoever else is their, going to be their fourth best player. So I think now you still have that the taxpayer mid-level exception to use. You add another rotation guy there. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, maybe Stanley Johnson, Austin Reeves, young guys kind of improving. Like, those guys take mini steps. Kendrick Nunn is back. Talon maybe gets better as a shooter. Like, there's ways, I think, like, for them to kind of improve internally as well as the Russ trade, but that's kind of their path. Otherwise, I think if they keep Russ, this is a low-tier playoff team that's probably losing in round one, maybe can pull off an upset with the right matchup, and then lose in round two. But, like, you're not a contender. I mean, like,
no.
They're not a contender if they keep Russell Westbrook. They might not be even if they trade him, but, like,
yeah,
I only
but you have
see
to do
them
something.
being a contender if they flip him. That's how I view it.
I mean, I'm so curious to see how Darvin constructs this roster and his lineups, but I mean, especially if Westbrook comes back. But I don't know, man. Like, the Brogdon trade, like, I would probably do Hield Turner would probably be my comfort level, just with the shooting, and you know what you get in Hield kind of filling the KCP role. Not the same defender, but Turner, you like the searchability with him, and he can go outside, and AD can do what he wants to do inside, and that seems more feasible to me. Because think about Brogdon. I mean, he's so much fun to watch, cutting and just finding his way inside, and he gets to the line, and that's all good. The injury stuff, I am not tying next season to Brogdon, AD, and LeBron's health. Like, that's just, those cannot be your three most important players, because the odds of all three remaining healthy for a deep playoff run is just unrealistic to me. So I feel like if you move Westbrook or whatever you do this offseason, you have to bring in a veteran guys that you know will be available come June, May, when you really need them, that they don't have that track record. And those kind of guys are in high demand right now, because everybody wants those guys, because I think everybody around the league now knows that depth is king. Like, even if you have a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown, you need other guys. Like, you need other guys to get you through this gauntlet. Like, Steph Curry needs a Jordan Poole. Like, everybody needs additional help, even when you get the star. It's not just that, oh, do you have a star? Now we're contenders. Well, what's the rest of the roster look like? It's not the bubble season anymore. Like, we're in a point now where these guys are so taxed, and they're asked to do so much on both ends of the floor, and the game is so fast, and the seasons are so long, that I don't see it without significant depth and guys you can rely on. And I would just be very curious to see who they end up relying on if they do move Westbrook, because that's the one thing about Westbrook with that gamble that you could understand, is that he's going to play. Like, Westbrook's healthy, and that dude is going to play. So if he was going to be that third star, like, the man is a warrior. He is a physical warrior and was going to play. It's just not well.
See, okay, but my pushback on that is, like, because I've had a bunch of Westbrook stands in my mentions of, because I've been hammering. I've written a couple anti-Westbrook things of just, like, kind of similar to what I'm saying now. Like, I don't think they can contend if he's on the roster, and he lacks self-awareness, and I mean, it's funny. He's actually nicer to us off camera than he is on camera. Like, it's almost like he'll kind of shoot the shit a little bit off camera, and like, person to person, I have nothing against him as, like, a person, right? Like,
right.
Most people in the NBA, I don't have anything against them. It's just, it's his performance, and it's the fact that he takes bad shots, he doesn't finish well in the paint the way he used to, he turns the ball over a lot, and he doesn't really try defensively. Like, those are my four gripes with Russell Westbrook. And but
do you think he knows that, though? Do you think he knows?
No,
like, those are true.
I think he knows it to some extent. Like, I think he's been a little self-critical, but he he like measures his success. I mean, he said it in his exit interview. He was like, well, I didn't average a triple-double this year, so it wasn't a good year for me. And I was like, if that's your measure of like your success, like you have like, what about you like shooting a career or like second worst, percentage at the rim of your career? Like, what about, all your defensive metrics being just awful? Like, what about your true shooting percentage being awful? Like, I just, his 3-point percentage continuing to decline. Like, I just think with him but then there's the Westbrook stands and people saying, well, at least he's available. I'm like, yes, that is nice. Like, you'd rather a guy be available than not be available, but it did not help the Lakers. Like, he had the worst plus minus on the team. And sure, I think to some extent, part of that was him being available hurt his plus minus because he was playing with so many bad lineups and stuff. But like, I think the Lakers would have been better off, like, bench Russell Westbrook and give the keys to Malik Monk, give the keys to Taylor and Horton Tucker. Like, they were more successful with the young guys than anything. Like, let those guys run the show, and they're going to have basically the same results, if not a little better, in my opinion. So,
and it would have been easier too if they just re-signed Caruso. Like, he's starting, and then you have Caruso and Monk, and then Westbrook off the bench. I don't know. I feel like it's a totally different vibe and a totally different situation. And
the Lakers, like, in retrospect, kind of with how this all played out, like, if you remember at the 2021 deadline, they had the trade that they weren't willing to do with Toronto, which was Talon, KCP, and a first for Kyle Lowry. Like, now in retrospect, it's like you would have been way better off with that deal.
Yeah.
And having Kyle Lowry who's not perfect. He comes with his flaws, but you saw in Miami, he can be a third guy on a team that makes the conference finals. And someone who, I mean, much better than Westbrook, like on both ends. And then also you still would have, you would have lost Taylor and KCP, but you already lost KCP in the Westbrook deal. And, Taylor and I think didn't really help them last year. So you probably would have kept Alex in that case. So now you still have Kuzma, now you have Kyle Lowry, you still have Alex Caruso. Like, that team to me makes a lot more sense. You kind of, revamp the center position and go from there. And like, that team to me is still at least in the playoffs, if not kind of maybe fighting for home court and having a puncher's chance at winning a championship versus last year's team where they didn't make the play-in. It's like insane to me that the Western Conference favorite entering the season didn't even make the play-in tournament.
Yeah. Not my favorite. Not
yours.
Jovan.
You called it.
Not my favorite. But we'll see what happens next year. We'll see. Last thing on the Lakers. Do you think Wall to LA is dead? Is that 100% dead?
I think so. I think it died at the trade deadline.
Okay.
Because Houston's wanted a first for him, and the Lakers are basically like, we're giving you a better player, for.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Do we think he's a better player at this point?
No, I think John Wall is a better player.
Yeah.
But I think, like, the optics are, like, Russ is the bigger star. His per game, like, he still put up 18, 7, and 7, but it was a very empty 18, 7, and 7. And a lot of those numbers came with LeBron and AD being out. So, like, you got to remember that those two missed 60-plus combined games, and he still only put up 18, 7, and 7. So imagine, like,
what's the size difference?
Healthy,
well, what's the size difference? Not with those two. I was going to say the size difference between Drew and Westbrook, because that's the ultimate thing. If you're a Darvin Ham believer, you're like, maybe he's spent so much time with Drew.
I think my problem with that, though, is like I feel like people are selling Drew short defensively of how good, like, Drew's always been an all defense. Like,
that's
I think maybe he's gone up to a different level in Milwaukee, but Drew's always been a really good defender. Russ has really
they're both
never
6'3".
Yeah. I mean, Drew's stockier. Drew's got, like, I feel like a stronger base.
I mean, Westbrook's still strong. Like, he's still
strong, but I just think Drew's strong. Like, I just think Drew's a different. I mean, you saw actually Russ was probably more effective last year guarding, like, small forwards than he was point guards. But he's still, like, I think the thing that maybe kind of irks me the most with the whole Westbrook situation, and we were talking about, like, the self-awareness and what he's like.
Yeah.
Like, he said even in his exit interview, he's like, I sacrificed so much. I did everything they asked of me, and, like, I made all these changes. And, like, That just was not true. He did not. He had one game all season that he set more than 4 on-ball screens, which was the third game of the season against Memphis, and then he never did it again. He did not. If you watch him off the ball, he was very just inattentive, kind of just standing in the corner or doing like whatever. Like wasn't really engaged, setting screens, cutting, moving, and then defensively was completely apathetic. And like, there was occasionally matchups or certain stretches of games where he would really lock in off the ball or on the ball, but navigating screens, help side rotations, all that type of stuff was not the level that the Lakers needed. And it's like, it's not like he can say like he's 33 and like 8. Like, yes, his athleticism has declined, but he's still a top 1 or 2% athlete in the NBA. Like he's still a freak athlete who should be able to, have the stamina, it's really an effort thing in my opinion. So, I know for a fact he did not do everything the coaching staff asked him to do. And I mean, I don't even think you need to talk to the coaching staff to know that, but I have. And like that fact is like, it's just him saying stuff like that. It just shows like either he has no self-awareness or he just is blatantly like lying about, the changes in his game, because he was basically the same player he's always been, just worse.
Go Lakers.
I drank an energy drink before this, so I'm revved up.
No, I'm saying like go Lakers. Like it's just bad. Like
I'm just
What kind of energy
stuff
drink
gets me going.
I wouldn't have guessed you're an energy drink guy because you're always at the cafe.
I'm not really.
Yeah.
I'm a big caffeine guy. Have you ever tried Ghost Energy?
I have not. Is that an LA thing or is that a national thing?
They make like protein products and stuff, but they've partnered with like Swedish Fish and Sour Patch and different stuff. So like I like the flavors. I'm not really an energy guy, but
yeah,
same.
They scare
usually
the shit out of me.
I have a huge crash when so like I like Red Bull or like sugar-free Red Bull, but I try to not have it that often. But with this, like it really does. Like I would say it's the best energy drink I've ever tried, where like I don't really have a crash and it gets me focused, but it gets me a little too amped up when I'm talking about Russ.
There you go. I like it. Did you know like our 3 or 4 year anniversary of us meeting in person happened a week or two ago? I got a Facebook memory.
Would have been my first year on the beat.
I think so.
Yeah, 2018, I would guess.
God.
2018, 2019.
Yeah. Long.
It's crazy.
Small time. I mean, just small world. But yeah, it's been a little bit since you popped into Atlanta. We had some good food, I seem to recall. In terms of Christian Wood, he gets traded to the Mavericks. Then you've got just Marquise Chris and just a couple guys that will not be factors in Houston going into next year. I think Boban, unfortunately, was included in that one.
Don't undersell Boban, okay?
You're still how is Boban? Are you all still buddy? Like you go on European vacations together? Like what is the situation with those two?
At the Hustle premiere at the beginning of the
Okay.
month.
Did you go to the Hustle premiere?
I did.
Okay, how was that?
It was fun. I'd never been to a movie premiere before, and I wasn't like, you get invited and you're not really I didn't really know what to expect, and I didn't know if it was like, I honestly didn't know.
Are you allowed to just go up to Anthony Edwards or Adam Sandler and be like, "Hey, athletic Jovan Buha, let's talk"?
Yeah, I didn't do that, but like, yeah, I mean, all the NBA players from the movie were there. LeBron was there. Adam, of course. Like, so. Queen Latifah, like, all the main principal figures from the movie were there, and then like Usher was there. Like there was kind of some random celebrity sightings.
Okay.
But it was cool, and I don't know if you've seen the movie. I enjoyed it.
I have not yet. No.
I think it's like, for a sports movie, I think it's good, but I also think like just kind of sort of the inside basketball kind of elements of it are, because they got. He's a Sixers employee, so like they got really good access of like Sixers arena, Sixers practice facility, Sixers like gear. There's multiple Sixers players in it, and then there's a lot, like Anthony Edwards doesn't play himself. There's a few guys who don't play themselves, but the funniest thing to me is that Juancho Hernan Gomez is like this like transcendent prospect that's just like hanging out in Spain and like no one knows who he is, but. I thought like there was a lot of touches where I'm like, okay, like that's actually accurate, and like I don't know if people know that that's accurate, but like this is kind of how some of this stuff works, and I thought like the inside basketball kind of elements of it were cool. But I mean, sure, there's some cheesy, corny elements to it too as well. But I think you're going to get that always with a sports movie. But for a sports movie, I think it was pretty good.
Okay. Well, Christian Wood, though.
Christian Wood.
I figured he would get more than what the Rockets are able to get for him. But, I mean, it's an upgrade. They don't have to rely on Dwight Powell at the 5 anymore. That's good. He's better at like a 12 to 14 minute guy if you need him. He's kind of like that starter, the JaVale McGee type role where he's out there with the starters and you roll with him for a little bit and then you make the move and you switch out going forward. And Christian Wood seems like he has a better chance of sticking in late game situations than Dwight Powell. But, the Mavericks are kind of stuck. Like, they don't have a lot of, like, the KP thing going sour kind of screws them. Like, that was where they were tying this early prime with Luka too. And that not going the way they wanted to, they're going to have to pay Jalen Brunson a lot of money to keep him around. And your core is Luka, Jalen, and Christian Wood for the next couple of years. And as we saw, I mean, Luka can take a team pretty far just on his own, but I don't know. Like, there's not much for me to say when it comes to Wood and this upgrade, because it is an upgrade, but I'm like, they went pretty far with Dwight Powell in that spot, and Christian Wood he's not an all-star, and he's not going to be somebody that gets them to that next level. They also don't really have a path to get to that next level because they don't have the roster construction that will allow them to flip 3 or 4 guys for that next star. And they've never won in free agency. Like, that's that 2011 on where they were like, oh, we'll keep the cap room, we'll be fine, we'll figure it out. And nobody ever came. And now, you've got somebody who will probably be the best player in basketball in the next year or two if he's not already there. And you're kind of stuck. Like, you're just kind of stuck. I don't know. I think the Mavs will be fine. They'll be good. They'll win a lot of basketball games. But I don't know. This is about the best they can do. What do you think?
Yeah, I was surprised based on the asking price for Wood in the past that, it was essentially the 26th pick in this year's draft for Christian Wood. But I like it. I probably like it a little bit more for Dallas than you do insofar as, like, I think one of their biggest issues in the playoffs was, aside from Luka and Jalen Brunson kind of doing their thing, they did not really have a reliable scorer inside the arc and someone who, like, it was all basically Luka pick and roll, Jalen Brunson pick and roll, drive and kick, drive and pull up, drive and finish, whatever. But I think Christian Wood gives them, because even Maxey, for as good as he was, like, he's primarily a spot up catch and shoot guy. Dwight Powell is offensive rebounder, roller, can lob threat, but has to be set up. So I think Christian Wood is someone who can do that, is a really good diver and roller and lob threat, but he's also someone who can post up, face up, slip screens, pick and pop, pick and roll, but kind of roll into posting up a mismatch or something. So, like, I feel like he's someone that can score in that, like, 6 to 12 foot range that Dallas didn't really have, aside from maybe posting up Luka or posting up Jalen, and when he'll do that little fadeaway that he does. So I like it. I like it offensively a lot for them. I think it makes their offense even more dynamic. And now they kind of have multiple looks they can throw at you at center, where they can go Wood, they can go Powell, they can go Kleba, like they can even go Dorian Finney-Smith, as we saw them go super small. Like, so I really like the versatility offensively. My biggest question is, can he defend at the highest level? And I don't want to spoil one of our final topics, but I think you've seen with with Golden State and Boston that these teams really don't have defensive weaknesses, in their rotation. Or if they do, they have ways to cover that up, and it's usually like the smaller, like, perimeter guys. But like Boston's entire rotation is like, 6'7" to 6'9", just giant athletes who can switch and are versatile. And then with Golden State, their front court, Wiggins, Looney, Draymond, like, all those guys are plus defenders. And then even Steph, I think, is underrated defensively. But like Gary Payton, Clay, I think has looked better progressively defensively throughout the playoffs. So, like, and that to me, I think even going back to like the last few champions, you look at Toronto, that team was loaded defensively. The Lakers really didn't have a defensive weakness in their rotation. Milwaukee, kind of similar. So like we've seen how important defense is, and I don't know, like Christian Wood is the type of guy who's going to be a 30 to 34 minute a night guy, but can he defend pick and rolls? Can he be a rim protector? Can he box out some of these bigger guys at the highest level in the conference semifinals, conference finals? Like, I don't know the answer to that. And if you are kind of building your construction of your roster of Luka, Jalen, Christian Wood, like your Jalen is a bit of a pit bull, but he also is undersized. Luka has his limitations defensively. Like, you kind of have your three best players are all like shaky defensively to some extent. So
yeah,
that's kind of a problem. Now, obviously, the rest of the guys, Reggie, Dorian, those guys I think can make up for some of that, but you are kind of really going in on like offense over defense, and I think the league has kind of shifted more. You have to be elite defensively and just be able to score enough offensively.
I mean, yeah, the Hawks are going to be going through that this summer, trying to figure that out because, I mean, building an elite defense around Trey is just difficult. Like, it's just going to continue to be difficult for the foreseeable future. We'll go to this. The Utah Jazz, Danny Ainge in the building. I think people have forgotten one thing I want to mention, the monstrosity that they've done to their uniforms next year. Like, I don't think people remember. Do you remember the black and neon green that they're doing? That they've added that to the... Oh, see, Jovan, people forgot that what's already happened. Here you go. So these neon green, black, and white uniforms are coming that were leaked a couple months back. And it's apparently, I remember at the time, that leak was for next season. So unless things change, I don't know. These, not a fan of these whatsoever. They have just no identity.
So they basically copied the Hawks from like...
Yes.
2015 or whenever they had that.
The neon, the Volt Green era.
Whenever.
Yeah, not great. I just don't understand. Like, when you're a franchise and you have an amazing run of success with a certain kind of uniform or it looks really good, just go back to that. Like, just do the 90s Jazz. I understand it's silly that you have Jazz behind, in front of a whole mountain range in Salt Lake, but just do that. That's what people remember. Like, that's fine. Or just do the New Orleans Jazz kind of look. But, like, what are we doing? Like, what is the Jazz logo? They had that red-orange stuff for a little bit. Like, what is their identity? The Jazz have no identity.
I would say now this at least matches in that the Jazz was already, like, probably the least applicable, like, team name to that city.
Yeah.
I mean, like Lakers, like, there's no lakes, but like obviously they were already an iconic franchise. They moved over from Minneapolis, but like for them, now like I think the colors are kind of like that does not match Utah. I mean, at all, right? Like this neon green and black, like I think that's much more of an Atlanta. I feel like colorway. Like at least I actually like those uniforms. I was in the minority. Like I thought Atlanta's jerseys were cool, but. And also, like, they're super plain, like at least Atlanta kind of had the different, like, diamond kind of, pattern on their jerseys. Like, this is straight up black jersey, Utah, and the number, and, like, neon green, yellow, and then, like, neon green, yellow with black Jazz and number. And then, yeah, it's just, this is hideous. I don't know how I missed this, but...
I'm telling you, everyone moved on.
I wish you hadn't shown me. I wish you hadn't shown me this. You just ruined my day.
I'm sorry, Jovan, but
you ruined my entire vacation.
I didn't mean to do that, Jovan. I apologize. Well, I mean, yeah, that's just the whole thing. So we'll see if those end up being the final ones, but it seems like that's probably what's going to happen there. Mitchell, I think, staying. Mitchell is part of this immediate core. Quinn Snyder out, we alluded to. They still don't have a head coach for next year. We don't really know what direction they're going to go in their head coaching search. And I wonder which comes first. This is, I think, the biggest thing. I think no coach is touching this job until they collectively decide, Ainge and company, what they're doing with Mitchell and Gobert. Like, that's got to be decided before I'm taking that job or even having a sit down, because it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm walking into. Are we walking into a rebuilding project? Are we just going to double down with this core and you're expecting me to get this team back to title contention? Like, what the you have to figure this out before you do anything. So I think it seems like Mitchell's the one who stays and Gobert's gone. Gobert in Atlanta and Gobert in a Trey-led locker room scares me. That really scares me. I understand the defensive alignment and what that would do and that sort of thing, but I don't know, man. That scares me. But in terms of what the Jazz will do, what do you think they do? If they move Gobert, who is the right fit? Where did they go? And do you think that's the right guy to move? Or should they tear it all the way down?
I'm kind of leaning tear it all the way down. I don't know how good Donovan Mitchell is. And I don't want to, I think sometimes we overcorrect when a player has a somewhat, I don't even want to say disappointing season, but kind of disappointing end to the season and just kind of the way everything played out with Utah. I think that there's a lot of Lob City with this group. And I think just the kind of collective, if you remember with Lob City, like there's a lot of times the analytical models would be like, this is the best team in the West. And it was like San Antonio was still there. OKC was still there. And, Golden State was there. But it was like, no. The Clippers, like on paper, have the most talent. Like they're the favorites. They statistically are the best team in the West. But it never materialized where they always lost, due to injury or just due to blowing it, choking, whatever. And that's kind of been Utah the last 4 or 5 years where it's been, and they've been the 1 seed a couple times, right? Like 1 or 2 times. But it's been Utah's the analytical model favorite. And like on paper, this is the best team in the league. This is the best team in the West. They should be in the finals. They should be the favorite. But it's never materialized in the postseason. And we've seen them always struggle on one end of the floor. Either they can't make shots or they can't defend, a smaller group. And they've had their chances. They should have beat the Clippers last season. Honestly, they should have beat Dallas. I think, given kind of the Luka missing the first couple games and just sort of looking at the route, Utah, if they're as good as they've been made, to seem, like they should have won that series. And the fact that they didn't, I just think, I think you got to trade at least one of them. But I'm almost wondering, do you trade Donovan Mitchell? Because I feel like there's no assurance that he's going to be he wants to be there. I thought it was interesting, his comments about the Quinn Snyder situation. There's been a lot of smoke about him going to the Knicks and kind of just that whole kind of dynamic. I also think, again, I don't know how good, is Donovan Mitchell good enough to be can he be a Dwayne Wade in 2006? I don't know. I kind of lean no.
Yeah.
So, can he be your number 2? Maybe. Can he be your number 3? I think for sure. But you're not keeping him in Utah to be your number 3 because you're, unless you're getting a high draft pick, you're probably not trading for, and you're definitely not signing someone better than Donovan Mitchell. So I just wonder if Utah, and we saw Danny do something similar in Boston where, ended up flipping Pierce and Garnett. And I think you saw what the Clippers ended up, ultimately, letting trading Chris Paul and then trading Blake Griffin. They were better off that way too. Now, I think LA and Boston are, Boston not as much, but definitely LA is more of a free agency destination. So they kind of could be in a couple of years we'll get Kawhi and we'll trade for PG. Utah can't say that. So maybe you just keep Donovan Mitchell. That's probably the safest route. But I don't know. I think you have to move one. And I almost look at it if you can get a big haul for Donovan, I think it might be worth it.
I do think the Capella and stuff package ends up happening. I think Gobert is the one. I've been saying for months that I was I feel like it's just Schlink's going to be hey, Golden State, this price tag's a little insane, and we have a history. So whichever one of these guys that you're not paying long term and you want to get off, Poole or Wiggins, whoever it is, he's coming to Atlanta. So just let us know which ones we have to send you because we're going to pick off this championship core. Maybe he still does that with one of them. Depends if Poole still wants to be a starter and if Clay's back, there's still just a kind of a block there long term. So I don't know. But I Gobert in Atlanta would not at all surprise me. But we shall see. we shall see. Jovan, what can the good folks check out from you across theathletic.com this week? The next couple weeks, I know you're on vacation, so what can the good folks look out for?
Yeah, I'll have a free agency big board of the top 25 or 30 guys for the Lakers to spend their taxpayer mid-level exception on.
How sad is this piece?
It's an enthralling list. I think Otto Porter Jr. might be number one, so that's all you got to know. And that might not even be realistic. He might be getting more than that. Probably will be getting more than that. But I'm going to have some pieces coming out of Malik Monk and Austin Reeves that I think will be good, kind of about Malik's future and Austin kind of improving and stuff and their friendship. So be on the lookout for that. And, yeah, I'm going to take the next week or so off. Going to be in Hawaii. Looking forward to that. So also
Hawaii?
be sure to check out my TikTok.
Your TikTok.
There,
I love it.
so.
Jovan's always up on all this stuff. He keeps up with all that. He's always ahead of the game with the kind of promotions. When's Stargazing season 2?
It's in the works.
Okay, so it is. We're getting
so
that. Yeah,
it will be. Yeah, I think August, September. Be on the lookout.
There you go. Stargazing. Jovan Buha. Jovan, thank you so much for taking time out of your vacation to do this. I greatly appreciate it. Always good to catch up, my friend. And we'll talk again soon.
Talk to you soon.